Hello everyone, this is ponderonweather. In this update, we're going to be talking about some dangerous flash flooding and an upcoming cooldown as I walk you through the next 7 to 10 days. So if you do like weather-related content, please subscribe to my channel as I will upload daily updates to keep you ahead of the storm. So let's get right to it. First of all, let's take you back the last 2 days. It has been extremely active for severe weather. Here is the latest preliminary updated storm reports from the Storm Prediction Center. And you can definitely see out here in Wisconsin, northern Illinois, northern Indiana, they had reported 8 tornadoes back 2 days ago. And they had a lot of wind reports out here with that extremely heavy straight line wind event. But down here along the coast too, we had some wind damage into the Carolinas and parts of Virginia. And then yesterday, that same storm just continued moving on. And so far, they have 7 reported tornadoes. In fact, several of them look to be pretty big. There was one last night in Trenton. It looked severe, guys. I mean, the debris ball was like 20,000 feet at times. So I always just cringe when I see something like that because, man, I just know that's doing a lot of damage, unfortunately. But the National Weather Service will be assessing all the damage properly. But they'll be out there today, assessing all the damage from those particular events. But fortunately, it does calm down a little bit. Let me kind of walk you through the big picture. Here's the expanded view. What's really happening? We've got this little flare-up activity down here in the Gulf of Mexico off the coast of Florida. But we have that main system that continues moving down. We have a flare-up of storms in and around the Tennessee Valley area, portions of Kentucky. But we also have this little disturbance here that's going to be moving across with some instability into parts of Nebraska. That's actually going to bring some severe weather for them later on today. But out here in the tropics, you can definitely see there's not much happening on the Atlantic side. Everything's pretty much on the Pacific side with the parade of storms out there. We do have some, waves that come off the African coast, but it's just something to watch in the interim. And we'll go over some of the details because the latest Japanese model that came out yesterday, I am expecting an uptick in activity as we go into August. So you can definitely look at the 10 to 16 day time frame. It's been really active on the Pacific side. And you can definitely see these orange shaded areas. That's when you have that sinking air. And the blue, that's when you have that little upward rising motion type air. That's what they've been dealing with on the Pacific side. That's why it's been a little bit more easier to produce, tropical storms and hurricanes out there. But all that's going to be shifting onto the Atlantic side. You can definitely see by that August 10th time frame, a lot of these blues start to creep in to the Gulf of Mexico, into the parts of the Caribbean. It gets really active off the African coast. So there's definitely a time frame to watch. And if we just expand it to that 17 to 30 day time frame, yeah, it's got pretty much the Atlantic side, all of Africa into the Caribbean, into the Gulf of Mexico. A lot of blues lighting up in that picture. So I do expect an uptick in activity between like the 10th and 30th time frame for August. But in the interim, there's not terribly too much to be concerned about. So we'll just have to take a look at that as we get further in time for the tropics. But in the interim, let's take a look at the big picture, what's really happening on the northern hemisphere view. This is the 500 millibar, all right? So back behind it, we've got some cooler air. After these storms come through, yeah, we definitely have some cooler air up here in the Northeast that's going to be impacting that part of the country as the ridge really starts to build over the Pacific Northwest. And it gets pretty hot over much of the United States. It has a lot of heat advisories, heat warnings out today. But you can definitely take a look up here in Alaska. Alaska turns warm, but just north of Alaska, there's a lot of cold air building just north of Alaska. And that's going to make an impact later on as we get into the week. So as we continue the view, that same trough just continues to dive a little bit further south. That's pretty impressive for this time of year to have a trough to this cold front to make it all the way down in the deep south of Texas and basically August. So that's a rare event in itself, but it continues for much of the week, this trough really starts to hang around in place as this ridge will start to really amplify. We really start to warm up in Alaska by the Tuesday time frame. But look at here, just north of there, we got that colder air. That's going to be a major player as this comes across, because this ridge, that's going to be swinging, slowly shifting off into the east as we go throughout to the week into next weekend. And by the time we get into next weekend, yeah, we're talking this same trough will start to dig further south. That'll be over the Pacific Northwest, bringing some much cooler conditions for them, as that same system over north of Alaska will be impacting Alaska now. So you were pretty warm to begin the week, but as you go into the weekend, man, you got some definitely comes colder air on the way, going to be impacting Alaska as that ridge will be over the top, and more or less have your above average temperatures into portions of Canada and the Northeast again, as we'll have average temperatures down here for parts of the plains and the deep south. So let's zoom back in and kind of take you back to where we are now. So today we've got Friday, July the 30th here. We got that same cold front. You can definitely see it's depicting cold front, warm front here, but along this boundary here, we're gonna have to be dealing with some stronger to severe thunderstorms in and around the Nebraska area. That'll bleed into parts of Iowa here, and northern parts of Missouri, with some hail and some high winds, and with some very gusty thunderstorms out in that part of the country. But out here, man, we're gonna have to be dealing with that very active monsoon again, and some dangerous flash flooding setting up again for portions of Arizona, Nevada here into Colorado, portions of Wyoming. That's going to be continuing to remain active. I mean, Tucson had your wettest July on record, so we're going to end July. You still got 2 more days to add on to those totals, and it's some very heavy rain you're going to have to be dealing with in parts of the parts of the Southwest. I mean, I was reading the drought index yesterday in Arizona. I mean, they made a major dent. I mean, on the exceptional exceptional drought out there, they knocked off 30 to 40% out of there. So it's definitely welcome rain, but unfortunately it does come in fast and furious. So flash flooding is nothing to play with, and it's definitely dangerous out here, and it can impact you in a big way in a short amount of time. But yeah, we'll be watching this front as we go throughout the weekend, as this will continue to sag southward. It'll have some sporadic heavier thunderstorms along with it. So now that same batch that was over Nebraska will be over Missouri as we go into the day on Saturday, as this kind of leads through. But man, look at the cooler push kind of reinforcing shot back behind it, as this one is a true cold front, and it will drop some pretty cooler air for August standards and kind of clear the airways out too. So but we do have some much needed rain that's going to be filtering in parts of Oregon and definitely Idaho to hopefully put a squash to some of those wildfires they've been dealing with pretty much for the last couple of weeks. So as we go into that Sunday time frame, now we're talking that cold front's going to start bleeding through. This is at 8 a.m. So it's probably going to be in and around the Oklahoma area, portions of Arkansas, starting to filter into Alabama here into Georgia, but that will continue to press southward. And to the south of that, on Sunday, you're going to heat up in a big way. It's probably going to be some of your hottest temperatures of the season with that compressional heating, but you're going to be, really feeling the effects of that cool front the following day on Monday, with some much cooler conditions and probably 10 to 15 degrees cooler than what you're probably going to be experiencing on the day on Sunday for portions of the deep south. So as we go into that Monday time frame, you can definitely see that where's that cold front, that's where the rain will fall, and parts of North Texas. That'll get into central Texas, right along to southern Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, into the Carolinas, as it starts to clear out back behind it. So it's got some cooler, say drier air, less amplified air, as you can definitely see out here in the Pacific. For now, the wave train continues with the very active season out here in the Pacific. But like I mentioned, all this activity is going to be moving over on the Atlantic side as we go deeper into that August time frame going forward. So as we go into that Tuesday time frame, you can definitely see that cold front's pretty impressive for this time of year. It's going to be sitting along this edge all the way down to the deep south and probably almost get out in the open waters again. So it is definitely rare to see a cold front hanging out in Houston on August 3rd, right? I mean, that just doesn't happen that often at all. But that's what's on the table, and we continue to remain active and in the monsoon. But I do feel that a lot of that shift will be shifting over to portions of New Mexico now. So now New Mexico is going to be getting some of those heavier flash flooding rains as we go into that Tuesday time frame of next week. So, and let's take a look at the temperatures, because they mean business, and it's going to be below average for a good chunk of 2/3 of the country where that trough takes place, where that colder air kind of filters in. But you can definitely see out here in the Pacific Northwest in the interim, it remains high and dry and warm, well above average temperatures, with that ridge firmly in place over Alaska as that colder air is building up to the north of Alaska. That'll eventually impact them as they go into the weekend. There's your rain prospects for Wednesday, the August 4th time frame. Yeah, that cold front just continues to press further southward. It more or less stalls and kind of fizzles out, but you can definitely see where the cold front will be by the time we get on August the 4th time frame, as we try to get some rain back in the picture for the Pacific Northwest. But you can see behind these the cooler air, it's dry, and so it's dry for much of the country as this will continue to bleed in a cooler, drier air from the north. So as we go into that Thursday time frame, there's your activity out here at the Pacific. Right along this boundary here. So we're probably we could be looking at some heavier totals and portions of southeastern Mexico and even West Texas out here. About 95% of the state is completely out of the drought in Texas, but they do need some rain in extreme portions of, say, El Paso area down here and this area, and they're going to be getting it. So that's going to help with the drought situation out there in a big way. So definitely some much needed rains in parts of the country that definitely need it for right now. And we're seeing definitely some of those welcome rains still impacting parts of the Southwest. So as we go to that August 5th time frame, yeah, I'm going to be watching several things. That like I mentioned, that cold front that's going to be coming and more or less stalling out in this feature. Whenever you get those tails of fronts, we always have to look out for any like tropical storm, tropical development that may come out of it. Right now, I mean, EPS probability guidance has this about 20 or 30% of something tropical trying to form off the southeast coast, off the Carolina coast here. We also have an active wave that's going to be coming off of Africa by that time, that August 5th time frame. Again, about a 20, 30, 40% it's probability right now. So there's just two areas to watch, to look at. Like I mentioned, I don't think it really gets going until about the 10th time frame. But for the interim, that is just something I'm kind of just keeping my eye on if something may start to come out of these two little features in the next 7 to 10 days. So as we look and as we fast forward into next weekend, we're talking that Saturday, August 7th time frame. Definitely see that cool front kind of fizzles out by then. But the big change is we got much needed precipitation with that colder air filtering into Alaska, but also rain chances and are back in the picture for the Pacific Northwest. Places like Portland, places like Seattle will start to get back into the action with not just the rain, but also the cooler conditions. And that's going to be the big change as we go into the next weekend, as that ridge will be dominating for much of the week, will slowly shift off into the central US again, as it allows that trough that was in north of Alaska to start bleeding in to bring cooler conditions to Alaska, but actually much cooler conditions for the Pacific Northwest as we get into next weekend. So those rains would just continue into Sunday for, Alaska into the Pacific Northwest, as the rains will try to continue. Probably not the dangerous flash flooding, but still rain showers around for the Southwest, even as we go into next weekend. And then, yeah, by next weekend, where the rain's going to be, it continues to remain below average. And then that's how often. I mean, I've been doing this for the last 2 months. I mean, every single day this has been above average. So this is a welcome relief. Saying, looking at the entire state of Washington and Oregon and even parts of California with below average temperatures for next weekend. So that is going to be a welcome relief. Hopefully we can get some much needed rain in that area, and hopefully that'll put a squash to some of these wildfires, that we can finally say that we could put an end and kind of start to get things back to normal out there. But man, in the interim, look at the rain chances between now and the next 7 to 10 days. You can definitely see where the cold front's going to be for much of next week, as it almost tries to stall off the coast. And like all these well above average precipitation anomalies are implying something might try to get its act together off the Carolina coast here. So we'll just be watching this area closely. But the active monsoon will continue to remain alive and well. Portions of Arizona into New Mexico with those heavier rains, flooding rains, dangerous flash flooding rains, and that precipitation will spread into Utah, get into Idaho. Yes, I mean, look at Oregon, look at Washington. So that is definitely some much needed rain and that neck of the woods. Unfortunately, we can't get California into the action, but at least we got portions of it going to be getting some much needed rain in that neck of the woods. So hey, I appreciate you guys watching. Do like this video and definitely leave your comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel to catch the latest update where I protect you before and after the moment.